Thank you, councillors. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to now welcome you to the 276th Special Council meeting of 9th of March 2022. I declare this meeting open at 10:01 a.m. I would like to advise meeting attendees that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded. This special council meeting has been called for to provide an update on the 2022 flood recovery efforts, along with a proposed flood recovery financial assistance package. Considerations of a strategy to address mosquito breeding associated with the recent flooding will also be addressed in today's meeting. So, I go to absence. I note that Councillor Bradley has requested a leave of absence due to a scheduled meetings which cannot be rescheduled due to the nature of that urgency. Do any other councillors have a leave of absence? They do not. So that being none, I now move a motion that Councillor Bradley be granted a leave of absence in accordance with section 5.2C3 of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code. Is there a seconder of the motion? Councillor Hall, the second of the motion. Do any councillors wish to speak to the motion? No councillors wish to speak to the motion. I now put it to the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. Thank you, councillors. We now go to reports. I now refer to the first item on the agenda, item 4.1. I invite Mr. Darren Scott, Chief Executive Officer, to join the discussions. Before we open discussions on any items, do councillors have a conflict of interest? Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, Melinda Russell, declare a declarable conflict of interest in relation to item 4.1 of the Ordinary Council meeting on the 9th of the 3rd, 2022. The particulars of my declaration are as follows. My home in Slacks Creek was inundated with half a metre of water through the bottom level. Alongside all others who were flooded, this may qualify me to apply for part of the rate rebate as part of the package we're voting on today. I believe that I will be able to best serve my community if I remain present in the meeting. So I would like my fellow councillors to allow me to stay and vote on today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. So Councillor Russell is declaring a declarable conflict of interest and she wishes to stay in the room, so therefore we must decide. First of all, I'll open it to the floor to the councillors for any discussions on this. Yes, Councillor Wilcox.
I believe that Councillor Russell will be best serving her community by staying in the meeting this morning. So I would forward the motion that she is allowed to stay.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. So Councillor Wilcox has put a motion up that Councillor Russell will be allowed to stay. I'll put that to the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. So therefore you're allowed to stay. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go now to the report. I'll now refer to Mr. Scott to open discussion.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to the council. First of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the work of the staff and the councillors that have brought us to this point and being able to bring forward a potential relief package in a very short order. The relief package is in 4 parts. One is rates relief package. There's a development assessment and health application license renewal and information charges relief package. A small business relief package, and finally a waste and environmental relief package. Take most of the report as read, but I'd just like to highlight a few things. So, first of all, in terms of the rates relief package, we're considering a relief of $250 for houses inundated by riverine flooding. The latest information we have at the moment is that we have confirmed 195 residences which have been inundated from riverine flooding. We have a further 43 which are highly likely to be also considered inundated, and another 47 still to go. That is those which will are likely to be inundated. No, another 50 which are likely. That takes us to less than 300. So in terms of the overall package, we're talking 300 or so residences. Further, there's also another 47 businesses which would also be considered to be inundated, and whilst there's work continuing on, they're still within the 60 which is considered within this package. In terms of the small business relief package, the 300,000, which is the total funding available, allows 60 businesses to be supported for up to $5,000 each. They have the same requirements as the residential, that is, need to be inundated from riverine flooding. So the same criteria, along with being a small business owner, employing up to but not exceeding 20 full-time employees, and being a small business located in Logan City Council. In terms of other update, in terms of the flood response, of the 147 roads impacted, 13 are still closed. So getting a long way back to having roads opened. Council's request for assistance, 134 requests, 11 are still outstanding in terms of the residential, and 13 still outstanding in terms of business. Happy to take questions on that.
Yep. Councillors, questions? Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scott, just a quick question. So we're offering $250 to ratepayers in the city who have been inundated across the floorboards. Are those protections extended to tenants of those properties, i.e. obviously we're calculating this based on water usage to clean out the properties and things like that. Is there anything to stop those residents or those tenants from being impacted by the water costs of cleaning up those properties, or is it just the goodwill of the landlord? So,
through you, Mr. Mayor, this relief package, the mechanism is through a rates rebate. It would appear on the next rate bill, and the owner of the property is the recipient of the benefit. It's a matter between the landlord and the tenant if there's any pass through.
So your view would be that the tenant should contact their real estate or their landlord as soon as possible to make sure that they're aware that that rebate has happened, and hopefully those costs won't be passed along to the tenant.
This will obviously be communicated. It's a discussion between the landlord and the tenant. It's not. We don't have a relationship or a role in that relationship. It's between those two parties.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Any other questions? Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scott, just a question. Will councillors be provided with a list of flood-affected properties, both residential and businesses identified by the disaster management team, to cross-check with what we're aware of in the community before this is rolled out, please?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they will. And we have the list now, so we're able to provide that. But once again, the surveying is still being undertaken, and it'll be amended as we go.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any further questions? No further. Councillor Hall.
So this rates relief payment, is it only applicable to people with a standalone house on a property? It's not applicable to people living in units on a unit estate? Is that correct?
It's for those that have been affected by riverine flooding across a premises. So premises could be a standalone house or a unit dwelling.
Okay, thank you. So if just say you owned a unit estates of about 20 units and each one of those units was inundated, you could claim for each and every unit on that estate?
Through you, it depends on the way the rates bills are calculated. So if you have 25 individual rates billed, then yes. If you don't, then no.
Understood. Thank you.
Any further questions? I'll take that as no. So the Mayor is moving this motion. Ask for a seconder. Councillor Raven is seconding. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? No. I'll put this matter to the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Therefore, the motion has been carried. Now we'll go to item 4.2, proactive targeted campaign to tackle emerging mosquito threat. I will now refer to item 4.2 on the agenda. I invite Ms. Emily Shafto, City Standards and Animal Care Manager, to join the discussions. Before we open discussions on this item, do any councillors have a conflict of interest? I wouldn't imagine so. No? Thank you. Therefore none, I will now open the floor to discussion. Ms. Shafto, you may address us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Mayor and councillors. I will take this report as read, but I'd like to make a few remarks, if I may. The recent floods have created an ideal environment for mosquito breeding in Logan City. This has coincided in timing with the unexpected emergence of Japanese encephalitis virus across Australia. Council's well-established vector management program operates proactive treatment services which work really well in normal conditions, but these are not normal conditions. And in the face of an emerging risk from this virus, it's time we act quickly to protect public health. Having consulted with Queensland health entomologists over the past few days, we are now implementing a proactive and tactical campaign to immediately increase capability, uplift surveillance and mosquito control activities on a broader basis, including targeted aerial spraying activities. This builds on the strong steps we've already taken over the past week to scale up to provide greater city coverage and communicate several times on social media. It's important to note that right now the public must also take steps to protect themselves and each other, and this is why, as part of this, Council is also investing in a broad public awareness campaign to help everyone be well equipped to do so. As a final note, from a funding perspective, I'm pleased to report today that we have received in-principle support from the Queensland Reconstruction Authority to fund this initiative as part of the statewide disaster management response, which is really great news for Logan residents who can be assured that Council is actively taking all reasonable steps to protect them at this time. I'd like to also mention quickly that as part of our capability uplift over the past couple of weeks, officers have been working to prepare a heat map, which you'll see in front of you. Our councillors should have been shared this image, and it's up on screen at the moment. And this is a tool to capture data from complaints about mosquitoes that we get across the city. We haven't had many yet, but we're expecting that to increase rapidly in coming days. So this is a great new tool which will show us very quickly where the problem areas are and allow us to deploy our resources accordingly. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions on the matter.
Thank you, Ms. Shafto. Okay, so we'll take questions. Councillor Kerensky first, Councillor Stemp second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say to Ms. Shafto, thank you to you and your team for your responsiveness to the number of requests we've had for fogging and mosquito management over the past week. There's been a number of residents that have been anxious about reports in the media and so on, and I certainly welcome this report and the support that your team is adding to increase the management of mosquitoes across the city, and I'm sure this will be welcome for many. So thank you. Please pass on my thanks to your team.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Shafto, just a quick question about the delivery or the controlled activities and aerial pest control treatment by drone. I just wanted to ask, do those activities involve fogging, which basically, and if so, will this occur before dawn to help protect the bees and so forth? And will beekeepers be notified of this going on, please?
Through Mr. Mayor, thank you for that question. It's a very good question, and one in which residents are certainly asking us at the moment, particularly those who keep bees. So our aerial spraying activities will be targeted in nature, typically by drone, and that will allow a very discriminate approach to areas where there's stagnant water, where mosquitoes are breeding, rather than a broad brush aerial bombing. That's the whole campaign. Residents should be assured that we're working in the early mornings, so between 2:30am and 5am, to minimise any impacts on the environment. We are also undertaking notification of local beekeepers that we know about, so they can move their hives or cover them as needed. So we will continue working on that. We'll also develop up some scripting for our customer service team to support that message getting out to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Shafter, appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Stem. Okay, so what we've got is we've got Councillor Bannon, Councillor Lane, and then Councillor Jeremiah. Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. How fast will we get on the ground running with it? That's the biggest question I'll get. So if it gets approved today, then when will we get out there and start hitting it? Because obviously you can see by the maps Jim Burners getting hammered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon, for the question. We're already right onto it. So we've ramped up our capabilities over the past week, and we've actively been targeting known water holding sites, particularly in the south of the city. We will continue to do so, and the challenge is at the moment they're still running water. Mosquitoes don't breed in running water, so until the water becomes stagnant, we won't be treating those areas, but we're actively testing to try to quickly tackle where mosquitoes may breed. So the answer is we're onto it right now.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much. Just a quick question. We've got about 700 residents that butt up against Karawatha Forest, which is Brisbane City Council's jurisdiction. Do you know if they have any plans to actually address the stagnant water in the forest? Have they made any contact with us? It's just we've got a retirement village right next to it, or nursing home, so any information you can get from them would be appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. We're actively engaging with our other local government authorities, and we've reached out earlier this week to Brisbane City Council, so that's certainly something I can follow up on and report back to you.
Councillor Jeremiah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to thank council officers for their hard work on this report. I have a procedural question regarding the heat map that has been printed, and my copy of the agenda hasn't been attached to item 4.2, this heat map. Is council required to move a procedural motion to table this document?
So, yep, so no further questions. I'm going to ask the other councillors. Any further questions? No? Okay, so what we'll do is now we'll move item 4.2, which is being presented to you. Therefore, the document must be tabled to the meeting. As a procedural motion, I'll now call for someone to move the motion. Councillor Jeremiah has moved the motion, so we don't have to have a seconder. So I now, does anyone wish to speak to the motion? No one wishes to speak to the motion. Now I open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. This is just for the tabling of the document. That has been carried unanimously, therefore the motion has been carried. Now, we go to the actual report itself. I now move to the report motion. Is there a mover for the report? Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Karansky. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion regarding the report? No one wishes to speak to the motion. I now put this matter for the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Therefore, the motion has been carried. So we have no other reports to consider. So this concludes our agenda for today's meeting. I now declare the meeting closed at 10:20 a.m. Thank you very much.